Ever feel like, your business owns you instead of the other way around?
Yeah.
You'd love to take a vacation or something.
Right.
But,
Who's gonna keep the lights on?
Exactly.
Right.
It's the entrepreneur's dilemma, isn't it?
It is.
You want the freedom, but you're trapped by the very thing you built.
Exactly. And so to kind of help us all crack this code,
Okay.
we are diving deep today into Built to Sell
Okay.
by John Warrillow.
I like this one.
It follows this character, Alex Stapleton,
Okay.
and he basically learns how to build a business that doesn't rely on him,
Yeah. Right.
for its every breath.
Yeah, a lot of entrepreneurs, I'm sure, are nodding their heads right now, feeling like their business is more of a demanding job than an asset.
For sure.
So the book kicks off, and Alex wants to sell his ad agency,
Oh, okay.
but it's practically worthless because the clients, they love him.
Right.
They don't necessarily love what his company offers.
Yeah, they're buying him.
Right.
They're not buying the business.
Does that sound familiar to anyone?
I think that's so common.
Oh, yeah.
And the book's mentor figure, Ted,
Yeah.
uses a really great analogy to kind of get Alex thinking differently.
Okay.
He says, and I'm paraphrasing here, but heart surgeons don't set broken ankles.
I love that.
Right.
So what's the takeaway there?
Specialization.
Oh, okay.
So it's about resisting that urge to be a jack of all trades.
Right.
And really focusing down on what you do best, becoming the expert in
Yeah.
that one specific area.
Well, it's so much harder than it sounds, though.
It is. It is.
To niche down and just do that one thing.
Yeah, and stay in your lane, right?
Right. I've
Yeah.
definitely fallen into that trap of I want to, I want to please everybody.
Offer everything under the sun, right? to
Yes.
everybody.
So what happens when you do that?
But just like Alex,
Yeah.
who's juggling a bank brochure and a BMW website and even SEO for a bike shop at the same time.
Oh my gosh.
You end up spread way too thin.
Yeah.
And what suffers when you're spread too thin?
Yeah.
Quality.
Totally.
Right. So you're right. You become a master of none.
Exactly.
You're sort of this jack of all trades, master of none.
And nobody wants that.
Yeah. So how does Alex break free from this cycle?
Right.
Ted guides him toward this concept of productization.
Okay.
So taking what he's already good at and turning it into a standardized, repeatable process
Okay.
with a name.
So instead of just designing logos,
Yeah.
he creates a 5-step logo design process or something.
The 5-step logo design process. Exactly.
Would that really change things, just putting a neo on it and making it a system?
I think it absolutely does.
Okay.
Because think about it this way.
Yeah.
You're no longer just selling your time.
Mm-hmm.
You're selling a product.
Oh.
And that product has value and it has steps.
Right.
And so it instantly elevates your expertise in the eyes of a customer.
Makes it easier to price too, right?
Absolutely.
Maybe a set thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's easier to delegate to your team
Yeah.
if you have a system.
So tell me what happens.
Okay, so
In the book?
In the book, Alex lands this big client,
Okay.
Ziggy's Natural Treats.
Okay.
And it's by presenting his new process,
Okay.
which inspires confidence and trust.
That's so interesting. It makes me think about what I could productize
Yeah.
in my own work.
What could you systematize?
Yeah.
What could you put into a process that you could then either give to your team to execute
Totally.
or potentially sell?
Yeah, that's a good point.
But building a sellable business isn't just about the product or service itself.
What else is there?
It's about creating a system for selling it.
Oh, so a sales engine almost.
A sales engine that doesn't rely on the founder's charm or personality.
Right, because, you can't just bottle that up and...
You can't bottle charisma.
Right.
You can't bottle personality
That's exactly.
and sell that.
Yeah.
What you can sell is a system and a process
Right.
that is repeatable.
That makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. So you'd rather have that than just somebody's winning smile.
Yeah. Would you rather rely on a rain dance for your crops or a well-built irrigation system?
Definitely irrigation.
Exactly.
I need that consistency.
Yes. Consistency and reliability.
Yeah.
And that is what a buyer wants to see.
That's what I would want if I was buying a business.
Absolutely.
I'd want to know that, it's not just going to fall apart when so-and-so's not there.
That's right.
Yeah.
And this ties into another crucial element of building a business that can thrive without you.
Okay.
Predictable and healthy cash flow.
Yes, the lifeblood of any business.
Right. Built to sell emphasizes upfront billing,
Okay.
particularly for service-based businesses.
And why is that?
Well, For one, it demonstrates stability
Okay.
and sound financial management.
Right.
It shows that you're on top of things.
Which is what any buyer would want to see.
Of course.
Right.
Who's going to buy a business that's a mess?
So it's like showing up to a meeting with like a suitcase full of cash.
Right.
Versus saying like, hey, trust me, it's all good. You'll get paid someday.
It changes the conversation.
Right.
Instead of chasing invoices, you're now managing growth.
I bet that does a lot for an entrepreneur's peace of mind, too.
I would think so.
Not having to like start every month with like, oh my gosh, how are we going to make payroll this month?
I can't even imagine the stress of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got upfront billing. We've got a sales engine.
Yes.
What else is there?
Speaking of peace of mind, right?
Yeah.
That upfront cash flow,
Yeah.
that's not just good for the books.
Yeah.
It's good for your soul, too.
I bet.
Less stress about making ends meet. You can focus on the bigger picture.
Which is what Alex needs, right? He's got all these changes he's making.
Right. He's got a lot on his plate.
But Ted reminds him that, like, you know, this is a process.
It is.
This takes time.
It does.
This isn't going to happen overnight. Like, you're not going to wake up and suddenly have this, like, you know, perfectly sellable business.
Yeah. Built to sell makes that very clear. It's a minimum 2-year journey.
Right.
Plus, you've got to prove a concept.
Right.
You've got to have a track record that eliminates any fluke doubts a buyer might have.
Right, because if you just do it for like 6 months, they're going to be like, well, was that just a...
Exactly. Is this sustainable?
Right.
Is this a flash in the pan?
Or is this the real deal?
So it's about like building that case.
Yes, building a rock solid case.
Yeah, it's not just about like a flashy presentation. It's like, can you back it up?
You've got to have the receipts,
Yeah.
so to speak.
That's a tough pill to swallow, I think, for a lot of entrepreneurs because we're like, you know, we love the hustle. We love the like, you know, quick win.
The instant gratification.
Exactly.
Right.
But like anything, I think, you know, the real magic happens when you start thinking long term.
When you shift from those short-term tactics
Totally.
to the long-term strategy, that's where the real value is.
That's where the freedom is.
And that's where the freedom is.
Yeah.
You know, not just financially, but mentally as well.
Oh, I bet.
Right, knowing your business can run without you constantly putting out fires. So you have that freedom to like actually enjoy the fruits of your labor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
Instead of feeling chained to it.
Yeah. And here's the funny thing, or maybe not so funny, but the ironic part
Okay.
is that focusing on that one thing,
Yeah.
that specialization that you were talking about earlier,
Right. Which feels counterintuitive.
it does. It feels
So
counterintuitive.
you'd think like, oh my gosh, if I narrow my focus, it's going to be more stressful.
Right. If I put all my eggs in one basket, what if that doesn't work out?
Exactly.
But the reality is focusing on that one thing actually leads to less stress overall.
Because you become like the expert in it.
You become the expert.
And then you don't have to worry about all these other things.
You're not scrambling to keep up with every new trend.
Right.
You're not trying to be everything to everyone.
Okay, that makes sense.
And that builds confidence not just for you, but also for your team and for your customers.
They know you're the go-to
Exactly.
for that thing.
For that one thing.
Speaking of being the go-to, there's this other concept from the book I wanted to touch on,
Okay.
which is building a moat
Ah, yes. The moat.
around your business.
I love this analogy.
Okay, so for anyone who hasn't, you know, read the book, what is a business moat?
So imagine a castle, right?
Okay.
Surrounded by this deep, wide moat.
So keeping the bad guys out.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
makes that castle much harder to attack.
Right.
In business, your moat is what makes you defensible.
Okay.
It's what makes you hard to copy.
So like what are some examples of moats?
So Ted, in the book, he mentions things like
Yeah.
owning a key industry conference,
Okay.
winning prestigious awards,
Oh.
or even developing some proprietary technology.
Oh.
So it's about creating those barriers to entry.
So it can't just be like we provide good customer service.
Everyone says they have good customer service.
Right.
That's not a moat.
So it has to be something that's like truly unique.
Something truly unique
Okay.
that sets you apart from the pack,
Like what?
that makes you indispensable to your ideal client.
So I'm like the only game in town, basically.
Ideally, yes. You want to be the indispensable solution,
Okay.
not just another interchangeable option.
Okay, so like the difference between being like a, you know, generic cola and being like, you know,
Right, or some...
cult favorite craft soda or something.
Exactly, with a loyal following.
That makes sense.
And that's part of your moat, too.
Okay.
It's that reputation.
Right.
The brand loyalty that you build by consistently delivering on your unique value proposition.
Okay, so let's say I've done all the things right. So I've got my, you know, niche specialized.
Ah.
I've got the sales engine. I've got the cash flow. I've got the moat.
You're killing it.
Yeah, I'm ready to sell, right?
Not so fast?
What else is there?
We still got to find you a buyer.
Oh, right.
And not just any buyer.
Okay.
Built to sell makes this distinction between two types of buyers.
What are they?
Strategic buyers
Okay.
and financial buyers.
So due diligence is like the final exam.
Yeah, it's where the rubber meets the road.
Right.
Where the spreadsheet meets the magnifying glass.
Exactly. And built to sell does not sugarcoat it.
No.
Like, they make it very clear.
It can be intense.
Yeah, this is where deals can fall apart.
Oh, absolutely.
If, like, you don't pass the test, so to speak.
If the buyer finds any cracks in the foundation.
Right. And I bet a lot of those cracks have to do with, like,
Oh, for sure.
how well you've actually built the business to run without you.
Well, that's what they're going to be looking for, right? They're going to be laser focused on, like, is there any hidden dependence on you?
So you can't just, like,
Can this business really function without you?
Right.
Or will it fall apart if you're not there to, like, micromanage every little detail?
Interesting.
They're looking for any signs that the system that you've built
Right.
is more fragile than it appears.
Right. It's like those stress tests they do on banks.
Exactly.
They're like, can you handle it when things get tough?
Right. Can you withstand a recession?
Right.
Can you withstand a pandemic?
Exactly. And if you can't,
Yeah.
then, like, you're going to have a problem.
And that's often when they'll start to adjust their offers.
Oh, really? So they could come in with a lower offer
Oh, yeah. If they see,
after due diligence.
yeah, if they see more risks than they initially anticipated.
Wow, that's got to be tough to stomach after you've done all this work.
It can be.
To be like, oh, by the way.
But that's why it's so important
Yeah.
to know your worth,
Right.
to have a walk-away point.
Okay.
Because sometimes no deal is better than a bad deal,
That's a good point.
right? Holding on to a strong business is always an option.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's the smartest move.
Especially if you've, like, poured your heart and soul into it.
I
To
try-
just, like, give it away for...
You don't want to undersell yourself.
Right, exactly.
Especially after you put in all this work to make it something truly valuable.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
It's a big decision.
It is. It's almost like selling a part of yourself in a way.
It is. You've poured so much of yourself into building this thing.
Right. So tell me what happens to Alex.
You've got to read the book to find out all the details.
Oh, come on, no spoilers.
No spoilers, but let's just say
Okay.
there are some tense moments,
Okay.
some tough decisions,
Okay.
and ultimately a very valuable lesson in knowing when to hold firm
Okay.
and when to compromise.
It's like life, right?
It is.
You got to know when to hold them.
Exactly.
Know when to fold them.
It's business.
And sometimes you just got to trust your gut.
You do. It's about making the call that feels right,
Yeah.
even if it's scary.
Even if it's scary. And I think that's what makes this book so compelling,
It is. It's relatable.
It's not just a business book. It's a story,
It's a story about taking control,
right?
about making choices that align with your values and aspirations.
And at the end of the day, isn't that what we all want?
I think so.
The freedom to choose our own path.
Yeah, whether that's selling for a life-changing sum
Right.
or continuing to build something you love on your own terms.
Exactly. So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into Built to Sell,
Yes.
I'm left with this question
Okay.
for you, dear listener.
Sure.
If you could step back
Okay.
from the day-to-day grind,
Yeah.
what's that one thing your business is uniquely good at?
Okay.
Something that maybe you could systematize?
Yes.
Something you could potentially scale?
Love it. It's a time to think about, like, building your own business
Right.
to sell
To sell someday.
something to ponder.
Food for thought.
Until next time, keep diving.